And that's the wrong one. And welcome to the Mental Health Hour. I am Derek, fresh off of 20 straight hours of streaming, so I might be a little
Woo!
incoherent. And as always, joined with me, the Queen of Kansas City from the Teachable Soul podcast, Miss Kat Daniels. How are you?
Hola, I am wonderful. How are you, my love?
I'm
My
tired.
butt. Oh no! Wait,
What happened?
my headphones came undid, and I could not hear you.
Oh,
Okay, we're good. As
so
long as I don't move my foot anymore.
don't do that.
I'm gonna open my blinds a little bit more though, because I need more light. There we go.
So how's things going for you? How's everything?
So my husband had to go on a work trip, so he didn't have a choice because in the military, if you try not to go, they just consider that AWOL and throw you in jail. So he had to go on a work trip. And while they were on this work trip, two guys that they were working with, came down with COVID. So the two guys who came down with COVID are stranded there for 2 weeks because they're quarantining in the place that they were at for 2 weeks. And then my husband, luckily, literally by the grace of whoever, got to come home, but they had to take a military flight back, which was like a 20 something hour flight because on like the back of one of those military planes that are not comfortable at all. And then once he got here, we had to quarantine him to the spare bedroom. And until he could get tested, which was today. So we are hoping to get the test results back tomorrow. But yeah, because he was directly exposed to the people that he was working with that got COVID, he has to be in quarantine, which meant, by the way, that I had to bring our daughter's bed down to the spare bedroom so that he wouldn't have to sleep on the floor. And I put like an extra coffee pot in there for him, and it's been quite an experience. Quite an experience. You're muted.
So you have your husband caged, is basically what's going.
Pretty much, yeah. As a matter of fact, when he was hollering at me because I hadn't started dinner yet because there was a fiasco with the oven, I was like, "Go back in your hole." So yeah, anytime he like opens the door, I'm just yelling at him to go back in. So it's been an experience, like I said.
Does he at least have a TV or anything in there?
Because we are spoiled as hell. Yes, I went and I bought him a 32-inch little TV flat screen so that he could hook his Xbox up to it that he brought with him to the trip. And so now he has at least his Xbox in there because, by the way, he left his Switch on the plane when he got in country. Yeah. So good times.
Good times. Yeah, and he's never going to see that again.
Probably not. No, it was a military flight, so there's a slightly, like, just a teensy bit more chance, but I don't know. So we'll see.
That's what he gets.
What he gets for what? What'd he do? He didn't have a choice. Like I said, he had to go on the trip.
Being in the military? I don't know. That's what he gets for being in the military?
Yeah, there we go. He's been in for 13, going on 14 years. I think he's only got like 6 years left.
6 years left, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be... No, he has 6 years left, so he's been in for 16 years because he's going to be in for 22 so that he can get a certain rank,
And then retire?
Mm-hmm. And then go double dip and do another government job.
Yep. That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
So, that's how most people do it.
I don't know about most. I know plenty of people who go in the military and get out like 4 years later and they're like, F this shit.
Oh, yeah, I know. But, like, I remember when I was in high school, my junior ROTC instructor was in there for like 30 years.
Yeah, it's
Retired as a lieutenant colonel,
yeah.
but then um, went to be a junior RTC instructor. So
Mm.
here's the thing. So he was getting retirement,
Hmm.
but the thing about it is when you work for a for junior RTC, your salary is paid for by the military. So he was also getting paid by the school as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was triple dipping.
Yeah. So
Nice.
when you're in at least that's how it is with the army. I'm not sure how it is with the others, but I know that with the army they get paid like three different times.
Yeah. Nice.
It's ridiculous if you're retired, but yeah,
Hmm.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
So how's everything else going? How's the kids? How's the family? How's your mental health? I know we were talking a lot about stuff last week. So how's your head doing?
Um, I don't know, bro. I think I have determined that it's about around this time, like when fall starts, that I get into a hibernation mode type deal. And so, like, I'm not going to post any more episodes past the next, because I've only got like 3 or 4 more episodes that are pre recorded. And I'm just going to edit those and post those. But once those are out, I'm not going to post anymore for a while because partially because of my brain is in hibernation mode. And like, I just don't want to fucking do anything right now. But also partially because the kids are starting school next week and it's going to be that e-learning bullshit. Um, which for my son, I'm excited for because I just looked at his schedule this morning and it's going to be great. He's fucking, he's going to be super easy. He's got like 3 classes on Tuesday and Thursday and 3 different classes on Monday and Friday and the whole day on Wednesday off just for like if he needs extra help or like homework or whatever. And then on Tuesday and Friday, he's got the morning off, but only does classes in the afternoon, basically. But he still has to show up at like 8:25 for whatever fucking reason. Which, as I assume, as the weeks go on, he won't actually have to show up for that, unless he just needs something extra. And then his algebra teacher is like his homeroom teacher, which they're going to be meeting with first thing in the morning, every morning. So I'm glad for that. I also think he is getting because I knew he was getting a high school credit for language, but I also, after looking at his classes today and like the credits on the side, it looks like he might also get a high school credit for algebra, which I'm super excited for that. So yeah, I'm excited for him. I'm not excited for my daughter.
Yeah, the same thing with my daughter. I mean, her schedule is kind of wonky. I mean,
Is it?
it's an actual schedule of events that happen throughout the day. Like, um,
That's good.
you know, this class during this time, this class during this time, and then there's actually scheduled in recess time and lunch time and all this other stuff. It's kind of weird, and I think it's either Mondays or Fridays where it's pretty much they don't do anything.
Right.
It's just a planning day
Right.
for the teachers, and so it should be interesting.
Hmm.
Is it next week? The 8th? Yeah, I guess it is next week. Yeah,
Yeah, my kids are starting on the 8th too. Yeah, on
yeah.
Tuesday. So,
So that should be interesting.
right.
Did they give your kids, Chromebooks or anything like that, or did you already have them for them?
They're intending to, but like Brian has his own whole system in his room because he helped buy his own gaming system. And then Elizabeth, we already had a Chromebook for her because we got like a free one when we signed up for something with our cable company. And so she has her own Chromebook basically as well. So I mean, we don't really need one, but they said they were going to assign them one. But if they try to assign us one, I'm going to be like if you don't want to, we don't need it, and I don't want to risk breaking it, honestly.
Yeah, but
I
at the
don't
same
want that
time,
responsibility.
they budgeted and they bought them all, so you might as well just take advantage of it because it's already programmed with everything that they need in
Right.
there. So I mean,
And yeah,
it might
that would be
be
the only reason I might take it because if there's any extra apps or anything like that that I don't already know about, I'm assuming they'll already be on there.
yeah,
So
yeah.
for
I
her,
mean,
at least, I will.
yeah. For our county, it's kind of interesting.
Right.
So I mean, we have like this. It's called LCPS Go, and it's just everything locked in, ready to go. They just got to click it. There's, there's a calculator built in, there's a this built in, there's a that built in, there's a
Mhm.
it's a little bit of everything. Google
Nice.
Classroom is built into it. I mean, it's all right there for them at their fingertips. So I mean
Right.
it, um, and it's off of the Loudoun County Public School System's server. Therefore there's no apps to download or anything like that. It's all just like right there.
Right. That's
So it should
cool.
be interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
So how are you?
well, like I said, I just came off of 20 hours of nonstop streaming.
Right.
So again, coherent possibly. But no, it was a fun, interesting night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I saw
mean,
Christina up for a little bit.
yeah, Christina. So I forgot I had therapy at 9 o'clock last night.
Mm.
So I asked her to cover for me while I was in therapy.
Yeah, she did good. I mean, I
Um,
only got to see her for a few minutes, but
I have no idea literally what she said or talked about, all I know is that when I came back on the comments, you were talking about sports bras, and I was like, "What the hell's going on here?"
because she was saying how her bra was super uncomfortable, and I'm like, bro, fuck bras, fuck bras.
But anyway, so I talked a lot about the situation that I'm in,
Hmm.
what led to this point and stuff like that. And then I just basically did a lot of best of stuff. I went back in the archives and pulled up our Uranus and I first YouTube video that we ever made,
Mm.
um, with horrible transitions, no overlays, a very bad intro. I mean, it was bad.
Mm. So
Um,
much fun.
oh my god.
Nice.
I think we used StreamYard for that first one. I couldn't remember. It looked like StreamYard, but the trend, I mean, I didn't know what I was doing apparently. The transitions were horrible.
It might have been Zoom.
I don't think we did Zoom for our first YouTube. Because I think we did it live. So I think it was through StreamYard. I know we did it live because it says so on the YouTube page.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, it was our interview with
Because
Jimmy.
I think you were on Twitch right then, right?
No, we did YouTube and Twitch that night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was our interview with Jimmy Shin,
Mm.
which was fun to watch.
Yeah.
I also, replayed the entire podcast collaboration episode.
Right on.
I played some video
That was a fun one.
games.
Right.
I played 4 hours of Assassin's Creed, which was fun.
Yeah, I pulled up at one point and I thought I was like, is this a video game? Is he playing a video game on here?
Yes, I was.
Yeah. Nice. That sounds
Um,
like fun.
oh yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. It was different. It was um, wasn't very productive in any which way, shape, or form,
Right.
but I had fun.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I don't think I promoted it long enough. I don't think, I think it was a, bad night to do it on a Sunday night and into
Mm,
Monday morning. I think just,
right. Why did
um,
you decide to do that? Or and why was it so quick? What happened?
it was
I mean,
just
I'm sorry if you've already said all this, but
a last minute, last ditch effort to try to get funded.
oh, but you're still going to do the show.
For as long as I can, yeah.
Okay, because when you said it was a last ditch effort in the description and stuff, I thought that that meant that if you didn't get funded, you weren't going to be able to do the show anymore.
Well, I mean, at a certain point, it's going to get to that point.
Right.
Um, you know, it's you know, it's getting to that point,
Right.
unfortunately.
Have you tried the podcasting companies in DC?
The what?
There's a couple of podcasting companies in DC.
I don't
That,
understand what you're saying.
have you tried applying to those companies? As a job, I'm sorry.
What are these companies?
Um,
I don't even know what you're
I
talking
don't
about.
remember their names. Hold on one second. I'll find it for you. Podcasting. Because before I started my podcast, I was thinking about just going to work for a podcasting company to get the experience. And so I found a couple. So like there's Podcast Garage, there's PRX Podcast Garage DC, and Podcast Garage and PRX Podcast Garage might actually be somewhat similar to each other, but I know PRX at least is they're a recording studio, but they also have like they rent out their space, but they do their own stuff too. There's Podcast Village Studios, there's Volubility Podcasting, there's I mean, just if you Google Podcasting Company DC, these are all ones that come up. And then there was one that's kind of a major one that's based out of, I don't know if it's Virginia or DC. Hold on one second. I'll find it for you. But is Izzy excited for school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what was it? Wednesday or Thursday? Thursday. They still gave out books and all this other stuff at the school, so we had to go drive by the school and pick up the books and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do.
And she was like, am I ever gonna be able to go back to school again? I really kind of want to meet my classmates,
right?
Because I mean, she's switching schools this year. I mean, she's no longer attending the same school Christina teaches at.
Because why?
Just because she wanted to. She wanted to because next year when she starts middle school, she wanted to be able to at least know some of the kids that she was going to attend middle school with. However, who knows if that's going to happen now?
Yeah, I was going to say that's going to be rough to break it to her.
Yeah, well, she knows.
Mm-hmm.
Morning, William. How's the funding? So, same answer as last night that I gave you. That was it was a fun 20 hours, like I said. I recapped a lot of cool stuff and did a lot of fun stuff and replayed some of my favorite performances and concerts from the summer, but I don't think I promoted it long enough. I don't think I came to did it. I think I did it too quick and got a big old goose egg.
Well, you got a wild hair up your patootie and forgot to do all the things that are required.
Yeah, but I mean, I thought it was I thought it was going to be a worthwhile effort.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it was. I mean, it was fun. It was interesting. I got a lot of cool comments, and I talked to a lot of cool people. But just it was it didn't do anything.
Right. Vox Media. That's the one.
Oh, Vox. Okay.
Yes.
I'll have to look them up.
Yeah, they're headquartered. I guess they're headquartered in New York, but I think there's something here in DC.
Okay.
I thought.
I'll look at something. I mean, it.
Yeah, in DC and New York, so they have one in each. But yeah.
But either way, I mean, this is just a really bad situation for me because of everything that happened.
Have you heard back from any lawyers?
No, unfortunately not.
Have you?
I thought about last night, actually, dropping the bomb on everything that happened, like names and everything.
No.
I thought about it, but I didn't.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, me too.
Because in the end, that would wind up. I know, but that would really wind up if you can find someone to take your case, and if they found out that you did that, it would fuck up all of the whole case.
I know. But finding someone to take the case is going to be difficult because there's so much around it, and
there is.
And the proof on my end is very little.
Well, but once you have a lawyer hired, they can subpoena anything that they want from the company. That's why you need a lawyer.
Yeah, William, I'm not going to drop names.
Yeah.
And I could have last night, but I didn't. Or yesterday afternoon, whenever I started. I think I started at 3:00 yesterday.
Because I mean, my thing with it is that I'm so frustrated about is that even if you don't have a case with the whole social media thing, you still have a case with your so many cases, by the way, not just one, but two with your physical like abilities. Like
Yeah,
that's
it's the
there's so many fucked up things that went on there.
well, I mean the worst part of it is the what the hell's wrong with my chair? Um, it was the um the workers' comp stuff. You know, I mean, I found out on a Thursday that I couldn't work anymore, and
Yeah.
or at least couldn't work from. I couldn't drive anymore, and couldn't visit stores and stuff like that.
Right.
And then I tell my boss that, and after weeks of ignoring my doctor's note, 24
Right.
hours later they fire me
Exactly.
for some
That's
crappy
insane.
reason. So I mean, that right there alone is kind of proof, but at the same time, it's the stuff that they came out with, the stuff that they fudged,
Hmm.
it's going to be hard to prove on either side. It just sucks.
I don't
Just
think it's going to be hard to prove.
huh?
I don't think it's going to be hard to prove.
Well, apparently lawyers think differently because I've talked to a lot of them.
Oh, they talked to you? They did call you back? I thought you just weren't getting a call
No,
back.
that's what I'm saying. I've talked to a lot of them, and none of them have called me back. I've told them everything. I've emailed them, told them everything, and none of them have called me back. I think I've talked to like 8 different lawyers. Not one has called me back.
But they shouldn't have to call you back after you tell them everything.
Well, whether or not they want to take the case,
They should be able to tell you right then.
not all the time.
Why not?
I don't know.
What did they say they wanted? I don't understand.
Well, I called and did an. I'm in Virginia, William. Um, uh, so when I called, they put me through to a paralegal and an intake person, and I gave them all the information, and then they said they would pass it on to a lawyer, and then if they decided to pick up the case, they would call me back, and none of them did. When you call and say you got something going on, they don't put you right through to a lawyer. They put you through to a legal clerk or a paralegal, whatever, to take an intake and do all that stuff for a pre-interview
Are
type
you
stuff.
calling like huge companies? Because when I was doing certain things and looking for lawyers for a certain specific thing, they did put me through to the lawyer. Because
I'm
it's only the lawyer who can advise you at all on what
correct,
to
but
do.
correct, and that's why it's just an intake. They just ask questions, write down everything, and pass it off to the lawyers. Because finding the right lawyer for a workers' comp case or an employment case is difficult. There's not a lot of them out there. Most of them are just family attorneys or personal injury attorneys and stuff like that.
Hmm.
The corporate law or corporate law attorneys and stuff like that, but not you know and the workers' comp cases and everything else like that are difficult to find.
Hmm. That's strange. I don't know. I'd be beating down their door, bro.
But it doesn't matter. I mean, at this point in
Kind of
time,
does.
but no. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter in the sense that that isn't going to do anything in the immediate.
Immediate right now. Yeah.
Yeah, um, getting funding is what
Mm-hmm.
matters right now. Um, yeah, but regardless, I figured today
Mm-hmm.
we can talk about our journeys so far with where we've come from, where we've ended, the stuff that we went through and how we got to where we're at. Um, just kind of have a little bit of a talk about how what we're doing and why.
Mm.
So,
So you want to make me cry? Okay. Just
I've
good to know.
I've cried on this show. It's time for you to cry.
Cool. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Um,
Wasn't prepared for that today, but all right then.
hey,
Here we go. Yep.
that might be a good one too. Yeah, I mean, and I just said that too. I mean, the finding of the sponsors is the most important thing right now. The lawyer thing is good. There's just, I mean, as long as
Secondary.
I can, it's secondary, but once I get the funding, then I can go ahead and focus on that.
Mm.
Um, but right now, it's all about getting the funding. Um, but anyway, back to what we were saying. So we've talked about this before, and we just kind of discussed it on the giant podcast collaboration. But I want to kind of go deeper into it now, like, especially during this mental health hour, especially knowing the circumstances around you and what you went through last year, which led to this point. So I want to know. Well, I already know the answer, but we're going to talk about it anyway.
You want me to tell? Yeah.
I do. I want you to tell the story about what led to creating your podcast, you leaving your job and focusing full time on this and being a full time mom. The situation with your dad. I want you to kind of start from there and kind of work your way to where you are now and why we're at where we're at.
That's my dog, Lily.
That's all.
She is my dog and only my dog, and will not go and be around anybody else but me. So last year was rough for me, just personally. My husband got deployed in March of last year. And it was only like a 6-month long deployment, basically. He came home in September. But during that time, he and I went through some major changes personally as well, just between ourselves. And so that was hard. And then in June, like May, actually, timeframe, I think, I started kind of finding out slowly by my dad that he was probably sick and most likely dying. And so he told me that he told me in May that he was sick, or no, he told me in May that he had lost interest in doing things like at all, and that he had to force himself to eat because otherwise he just wasn't hungry, period. But he was forcing himself to eat at least once or twice a day, he said. And when he said that, for almost like a year and a half or 2 years before that, he had kind of hinted at the doctors basically thinking that something was wrong with him. But every single time he hinted at it, he would follow it up with, no, they're wrong. That's not what it is. That's not what's going on with me. That's not happening. And he would downplay everything. And you can't, he was a very stubborn person in general. And you just can't tell him anything. I mean, just like him saying that the doctors were wrong and that there's nothing wrong with him, even though he clearly knew that something was wrong with him because he kept going back to the doctor because he knows something was wrong. I just you couldn't tell him otherwise. And unfortunately, he was living in Texas and I was living in Maryland. So I didn't go and visit him for about a year and a half or 2 years to be able to see the difference. But in May, whenever he started telling me that he was kind of deteriorating, basically, I decided to go up and see him. And when I got there, he was just skin and bones, literally. And it was like, he's always been a fairly skinny person. So for him to have lost pretty much any amount of weight was significant, but he had lost a crap load of weight. And he could barely walk. He could walk, but he was slow as all get out, because he was just so weak and tired. And so, I went at the time that I went because he had scheduled an appointment with the doctor, and I wanted to physically go to the doctor with him because everything that he had told me up until that point was clearly not 100% what he was fucking being told. He finally, when I told him I was going to come visit, he finally told me that they had tried to tell him a year ago that they wanted to do a biopsy on something in his lungs. He didn't know what. And when he told me that finally, I got mad and I was like, you need to make a doctor's appointment and I'm going to come with you to the doctor's appointment so that I can hear the doctor tell you what you need to do because you haven't done it, obviously, and you're no longer trusted to do this shit alone. So, luckily, I went to the doctor's appointment and the doctor was like, we need to do a biopsy. I can't tell you anything without a biopsy. I can't do anything without a biopsy. I can just tell you that there's a huge mass in your lung and it's there. And I need to know if it's cancerous or not. I don't know if it is or not.
So he refused to get a biopsy for all that time?
Yes. And I realized while we were in the doctor's office that it was partially because he didn't want to ask for help from literally anybody. I mean, I easily could have, a year prior to that, I easily could have come down and visited him and stayed with him in order for him to get that biopsy done. It would not have been a problem at all. But he didn't want to ask for help. He could have asked a neighbor to come and take him to the hospital and drive him back home. Because when we were in the doctor's office, she was like, I need the biopsy. You're going to have to take at least an overnight visit or have somebody drive you home. Like it can be a same day thing, but you have to have somebody drive you home because you're going to be knocked out and unconscious basically. And he's like, well, I was thinking about maybe I could take like this public bus system or something. It's not a public bus. It's one of those transport things that for like disabled people, And he was like, I was thinking maybe I could do that. And she's like, no, that's not going to work because I can't just leave you on a bench waiting for this bus. That's not going to work. You have to have someone drive you to and from. And when she told us that, because my husband was deployed, I had brought my kids with me down to Texas to visit him. And so with the amount of deterioration that had gone on that I could see physically, he hadn't even realized how bad he was, like physically because we went a couple of hours away to stay in a hotel to visit because his house he had bought the house just a couple of years prior so that he could fix it up to live in it. And he had not gotten around to fixing it up because he felt like shit the whole time. And so it wasn't okay for all of us to stay in. So we got to stay in a hotel while we were visiting him. And me and the kids went to go get something to eat at one point while he took a bath. And he got out of the bath and there was a full length mirror in front of the bathroom door, like there is in a lot of hotels. And he finally was able to see the deterioration that like what his whole body actually looked like. And that's what actually got him to understand how bad he was. It wasn't the fact that he couldn't walk. It wasn't the fact that he couldn't breathe. He was literally talking about getting on oxygen before I came down there. And it was just seeing his physical body and the deterioration that finally got him to understand how bad he was. And so there was a whole couple of days where we were debating back and forth on whether I was going to leave him there and come back and pick him up, or if he was just going to come directly with me to Maryland, because we knew that we couldn't get the biopsy done in Texas because I couldn't stay there long enough to do it because they had to schedule it, weeks out or a week out at least. But he could come with me to Maryland and we could get the biopsy done here, but he had to come with me like that day to do it basically. And I was afraid of him. He was going to try to drive across the country, halfway across the country in this deteriorated state by himself. He wanted me to leave him in Texas so that he could get his house in order. And then he was going to drive to Maryland by himself. And I'm like, Dad, I don't think that's a good idea. I just don't like it. I don't think that's a good idea. You're going to have to stop multiple times. Like, it's just easier if you just come with me right now. And so finally I was able to convince him to do that. And a few days after we got back to Maryland, he had bought an O2 saturation monitor for his finger to find out, what his oxygen levels were. And they had been in like the 95 range, which is still not great, but it's not the most horrible. And then one day, all of a sudden, they just dropped, like a couple weeks after being here in Maryland, because we had to get his Medicare set up and had to find a doctor and blah, blah, blah. It just dropped to like 60 something one day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And come to find out, so I took him to the hospital, of course, and come to find out his lung had collapsed. And that's why it had dropped so significantly, so suddenly. And they admitted him to the hospital. And so he spent a week almost in the hospital waiting for them to have an open spot in surgery to do the biopsy, or to reinflate the lung or whatever. They decided to do a couple of different things. Finally, once he was under, thank God, they finally decided to do the biopsy. But originally they told us they weren't going to be able to do the biopsy. It was a mess. So they did. And then he spent another 4 to 5 days in the hospital after that because they had to intubate him, and there were a couple of different issues that were caused because of that. So we eventually finally got him home, but while we were in the hospital, they told us it was stage 4. They finally got the results back, and it was stage 4, and there was nothing that they could do. He had lost so much weight. He had deteriorated so far that even if he wanted to do chemo or something to extend potentially his life, maybe a week or a couple of months or something like that, they couldn't do it because his weight was just so down. His body would be too weak to take it. Chemo is harsh on the body anyway. And so then that was in, and then my husband paid for us to move out of pocket to a new house, which cost us thousands of dollars. Because the house that we were in, it had a bathroom on the main floor, but it was only a toilet and a sink. Yeah. And the only room that was up there was supposed to have been a living room. So it had only open doors to like the kitchen and the upstairs. There was no privacy, no nothing. And I didn't want him to be like that. We wouldn't have been able to get him up the stairs. He was having trouble walking, period, much less having to go upstairs. So we were fortunate enough to be able to move to a house where he had a bedroom and a full bath on the same floor, and he didn't have to go up any stairs at all. And so we moved while my dad was in the hospital, and undergoing surgery and all that that was in July, I think. And then in October, he finally passed away. And I was working at a job during that time, but then, and in between the time of like June, July, and October, the whole time he was going back and forth between, oh, I think I'm still going to try to fight it, and I'm going to be okay. I'm not going to fight it. And it being in limbo like that, I just didn't know what to do. And you can't tell somebody to just give up, even though the signs and like they can't handle chemo and like they let themselves deteriorate so far. I had a dream about him the other night that he had shown up to my door while we were in the old house that we used to live in, and had finally tried to ask for help, but was still deteriorated and said, he just didn't want to go and wasn't ready to go. And I know he wasn't ready to go. He had talked about for years, for like 20 years, saying that he didn't, he wanted to live until he was at least 80. That was his cutoff. He wanted to live until he was at least 80, make it to 80. And he was 70 when he passed away. He had his 71st birthday, I think, was fixing to come up in November. Yeah, so in October he passed away. November and December was kind of a blur because of the holidays and whatnot. And then in January and October, November is when I actually started thinking about doing the podcast, excuse me. And then in January, I had pretty much decided as soon as I heard that I could do a podcast in October, November timeframe that I was going to do it. I was just doing research and planning and stuff while I was also working part-time from home at the time. But I was working, but I was also like doing research for my podcast while I was working. And so I don't like to charge people for their time if I don't have to. So I would just tell her that I would work from like 2 to 2:30 if I started, because what would happen is I'd get distracted in the middle of working and start doing research on podcasting stuff. And so I was only charging her for the time that I was working for her, but it was sporadic and scattered because I'd get distracted and start researching podcasting stuff. And it was addicting at the time. And so in January or February, I think I launched my actual podcast. I think it was the beginning of February, but I quit my job in January because I couldn't do both. I was getting too distracted working. I didn't like working in that position anymore. And I had been there for a year and we hadn't progressed beyond the point at all of where we had been when I started. And so I was like, I'm sorry, I'm just going to quit and do this podcasting thing and see what happens. Which, again, because of my husband, we're fortunate enough that I can do that. But also, I mean, it ultimately worked out. It was in March, right after that the shutdown happened, and I wouldn't have been able to work and do e-learning at the time at all.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate enough to be here already and have already quit my job. And I guess that's just how the cookie crumbles. But so that's how I'm here.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Especially with your dad. And the men from that generation, my dad included,
right.
Are stubborn as fuck.
Yeah, and they're workhorses.
They are.
They don't want to. They don't ever want to quit.
My grandfather, worked. Shit. I want to say up until like a year or two before he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And he always said, "The moment I retire is the moment I die."
Man, I am literally having that conversation with my mother right now because she's old enough to retire, but she is literally afraid that if she retires, she'll die.
Most people are.
Where does that come from?
I don't even know.
I'm like, I'm having to explain to her, like, do you understand how much actual freedom you'll have? You've worked your entire life to come to this point. And you're only going to have freedom. And like with her, she's fortunate enough that physically she can still work, but she only has to work part-time. And she can choose when she gets to work if she retires. But I'm having to explain all this to her because she's literally, I was on the phone with her yesterday trying to convince her to retire, even though her back is broken, literal spine is broken in multiple places. And I'm having to convince her to retire because she's afraid she's going to die.
Yeah, it's funny how, our generation and below versus, our parents' generation. Our generation and below is trying to make as much money as fast as possible to retire at an early age and just say fuck it all.
Oh yeah.
And then the generation before us and even the generation before them, their parents were all like, "Oh, we got to work until the day we die." It's like,
right. Well, and it's funny because I remember growing up hearing, I don't know where I heard this. I don't know if my parents said it or if I heard other adults say it, but there were so many times where I heard adults say that they were working so hard to try to make a better future for their kids and their grandkids, right?
Yeah.
And now we're here. And this is the better future that they worked for. They put us all through college, some of us. They worked hard physically in their jobs so that we could have more technological advancements and be here at this point. And we're here, and now they're all complaining, "Oh, back in my day." Well, yeah, but thank you. I mean, thank you. Yes, back in your day. That's exactly how it went back in your day. But we've evolved now, and it's because of you that we've been able to evolve to this point. And we don't have to work as hard now. We just don't have to.
Yeah, but at the same time, we should be.
Why?
I mean, I work hard.
But you don't have to.
Apparently, I do.
No, but I mean, like, you don't have to go and be a farmer and work in the fields every day. Even the farmers that we have now don't have to work as hard because they have machines to do it for them. We have robots, essentially.
I could never be a farmer.
Why?
It's too damn hot.
It is fucking hot, bro.
I'm not built for the outside.
I think you actually are. Like, do you know how hot of a farmer you'd make, though?
Thanks.
Yeah, you'd make a hot farmer. You'd make a good farmer.
Um, I do not have a green thumb.
You
I
don't
have
have to have a green thumb. You
I have
just
a-
harvest the shit.
I have a black thumb.
My family owns a farm in the middle of Kansas, and it is like, I think there's only 3 of these left in the United States, but it is one of the only farms left in the United States, at least possibly the world, that only relies on rainwater to water their crops.
Oh wow.
So you don't have to have a green thumb. You just let the shit grow. You just plant the seed and wait, and then harvest it when it comes up.
I managed to kill a fresh basil plant.
I don't think that would be that hard. Is it hard to kill a basil plant?
Oh yeah, it was pretty neglected.
I mean, if you can tell me that you've killed a cactus, then we can talk about how impressive you are at killing things. But
You know, I probably could.
me too. I'm horrible at planting things
Yeah.
and keeping them alive. Great at keeping children alive, though, just not plants.
So,
So, what about you?
all right.
You've told your story, right?
I don't think we've told the complete story.
Okay.
I think we talked a little bit about it. We
Mhm.
did have that one episode where you kind of interviewed me and kind of talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
But this is completely. I mean, it goes back to, and here's where the coincidences between you and I lie. Because in October of 2018,
hmm
which is 1 year before your dad passed away,
hmm
I almost lost my dad.
Right.
And that is kind of well, there was another series of events that led up to it, with work and stuff like that.
Right.
But that right there broke me.
Mm.
And I mean, he had a stroke in October of 2018. And, I found out while I was at work. I went home, waited for him to, wake up or be mobile or something along those lines.
hmm
And I was going to fly out, fly back home I don't consider it home anymore, but fly back to Florida to go see him and, stuff like that.
hmm
And he told me no. He goes, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm like, Dad, you just had a stroke. He's like, no, I'm fine. Don't worry
Right.
about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the? You just literally had a stroke.
hmm
How can you tell me that you're fine?
Right.
But he had a stroke and then he literally went back to work 3 days later.
Yeah. That's how my husband's dad is. He's had 2 strokes and won't let us come whenever that happens. And goes right back to work. He
Yeah.
broke his shoulder and went right back to work.
Yeah, my dad has literally had 2 or 3 heart attacks,
Yeah.
a stroke. He has diabetes. And every time something happens to him, it's don't worry about it, I'm good.
Yeah, exactly.
But yet, yeah, I mean, yeah. So anyway, so that led to a series of events that ended up breaking me, and I ended up having to take a pretty quick vacation. Just kind of like I said, I'm going on vacation. Told my boss, I'm like I'm not planning it. I'm going.
Mhm.
And I spent that entire week just kind of talking to my doctor and stuff like that, because I finally came to grips that there was something wrong. I finally realized at that time, I mean, there was something wrong. I fought it for so long, for years and years and years and years and years. My wife was like, Derek, you need to help. There's something not right.
Mm.
Was
Was that when you tried to commit suicide?
Yeah, that week was, that first
Mm.
week. So that week led into my wife's birthday. And I think I know I've told this, but I mean,
Right.
The day of her birthday in 2018, I almost committed suicide. And it's so vivid in my brain. I was just super down. I mean, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like pretty good most of that day. It was a Friday. It was her birthday. I was okay that day, or at least I thought so. And then I drove out to about an hour to a city called Tyson's Corner to go pick up a present for her.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, as I'm leaving that store, it's just like the ground fell from out from underneath me,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just a shell. I mean, I was just broken, and I don't know where it came from. I mean, it was the drop of a hat. Because I mean, thinking back to it now, I'm like, I don't remember being upset or being down, having a depressed day. I don't remember that at all from that day. But the moment I got back in my car to drive home, everything collapsed around me. I still don't know what caused it. And I was driving home, and it's, on this road, there's a cliff, nearby. And I was like, and there's a major intersection, and I was gonna slam through that intersection and hope and pray I hit the guardrail hard enough to where I went over the cliff. However, the moment I started accelerating, within 30 seconds, I changed my mind.
Oh, the sun came on.
Yeah. So the song "Ghost" by Badflower came on, which is a song about suicide, and it immediately changed my thought. October of 2018 was a rough month for me. My boss at the time, who still is to this day, just a complete ass clown. Because not only did she, completely ruin my love for the job that I had, she also completely ruined, the next job that I went to go have. And I'm not going to go into that because it goes, back into what we were talking about earlier. But I mean, she caused problems for me for years. Whether I was underneath her or not even working for her, she was still causing problems for me. And it just completely broke me. And but in that moment, like I said, I wanted to, but I didn't.
Right.
And I pulled over, called my doctor, called my wife, and just told them, I'm like, hey, there's something wrong here.
Mm-hmm.
And she told me to stop taking the pills
Mm-hmm.
that I was on. I was on Zoloft at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And she switched me over to Lexapro. She wanted me to start taking it the next day.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of wanted me to get, out of that funk.
Right.
But I was like, I was still having this horrible thoughts, and my brain, being stupid as I am, thought, wait a second, okay, so if the cause of this is my serotonin levels are too high, and I'm hyper depressed at that point, I need to get depressed. So I went out and got drunk to reduce my serotonin levels to actually get depressed. And I got wasted. And by the end of the night, I was feeling great.
Right.
However, the next day I got up and I went to work. And that night I started Lexapro.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say Alexa, shut up. And started Lexapro, and no, I didn't say Alexa. But then that next morning I went to work again, and I don't remember that day at work. So between all the alcohol that I had, and between the switching of the pills and still having Zoloft in my system and now having Lexapro in my system and all this other stuff, That Sunday, I believe it was, I do not remember at all.
Hmm.
The only thing I know is from what people told me.
Right.
Supposedly I locked myself in the office. I, it was bad. And I did a lot of stuff that I can't even explain because I don't remember it. And
What did they say you locked yourself in the office for? Were you crying or
I
like upset? What happened?
they were trying to talk to me, and they said, I was just talking about possibly, committing suicide again, or, they I can't even remember what they said to me. It was 2 years ago. But I mean, I just remember not remembering. You know what I'm saying? I don't
Yeah.
remember that day at all.
Yeah.
And then and that point on, I devoted my life to understanding what was going on in my head, and devoting my life to helping others.
Mm.
um but I guess the biggest kick in the nuts for me, as far as what needed to be done. What the hell are you doing?
Sorry. Go ahead.
The biggest kick in the nuts for me, as far as that kind of stuff goes, was the summer of 2019, so last year. um we had went to a conference in the spring of last year, and during that conference, they talked about a new the company that I was working for talked about a new charity that we were going to be starting working with, and it was a domestic violence charity. And when the parents got up there and were talking about how they lost their daughter to domestic violence, it really hit home for me, because I almost lost my stepsister to domestic violence, and it it hit home really, really hard, and it got me thinking. I'm like, okay, so we're doing this for this company, we're doing this for this organization, we're doing this for this organization, and now we're starting this. And I started thinking, well, why aren't we doing more for mental health? Then I come to find out, within a couple weeks of this, that within a matter of a couple weeks time span, we actually lost 3 of our associates to suicide in the company. And so I went to the higher ups in HR and I said, hey, this is my story. This is, and as well as I do about these other 3 people that have, committed suicide and have had mental health issues and blah, 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 blah,
Right.
blah. I think we can be doing more as a company.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave them, like NAMI, the world's largest, mental health organization,
Right.
another one called To Write Love in Our Arms. There's a bunch of them. And I said, hey, we need to, start working with these charities.
Mm-hmm.
And they completely shut me down,
Right.
saying that it's gonna open up too many possibilities of HIPAA violations. I'm like, how?
Right.
How? But that was their logic.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point in time, I thought, and I realized that they care more about themselves and their own associates. And still to this day, that company, I know for a fact, does not give a shit about their people.
Right.
The way they treat people, the way they handle things in that company is ridiculous.
Mhm.
Here's an example. Here is a fucking example of how badly this company treats their people.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a policy, okay, that says no associate is allowed to work more than 12 hours. Because at one point, a while back, somebody had worked like a 15, 16-hour shift or something like that, and was driving home and fell asleep at the wheel and got into a car accident and killed somebody. So they said no more. No associate is allowed to work more than 12 hours. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
However, they continually tell their salaried members of management, I don't care how long it takes, you work it. because they know that there's no track record of clocking in or out to where that 12-hour violation rule matters. I was once told to work for 24 hours straight.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and was offered no help at all whatsoever.
Right, of course.
So what ended up happening was this. I went into work. The closing manager called out. And then the overnight manager had an emergency and couldn't come in. So they refused to send me any help. And I literally had to go from open to close and then the overnight.
You didn't... That's weird that that's even how that works. Like, you should always have a backup manager, like an assistant manager that can take your place or help.
One of them was on vacation. That should not be... The other one was on vacation. And they refused to send me any help.
But you shouldn't have only 4 managers for a store, period.
3.
Okay. Well, no, because you said the overnight.
The overnight is as an
the guy that was to take your place.
The overnight. So the overnight manager is not allowed to run the day shift at all. They're only there for the overnight. So there's only 3 per store.
I'm too cocky for that shit. I'd be like, I'm putting somebody in charge, and you can fucking sue me or fire me.
Yeah, well. Either way, the point is that they constantly did that to me.
Right.
And then the whole mental health thing just drove a wedge, and I was done at that point. Right. At that point is when I started planning and really thinking about doing this.
Right.
And then fast forward to when I left the job and got another job. In December, November, something like that. Last year, I don't remember.
Right.
November, December last year. I can't remember when. Going to a conference for my job, my new job, down in Richmond. So about 3-hour drive, 6 hours round trip. And me and this guy that we was riding with, the former co-host of this show, or the old show, shut up, Cameron.
Right.
Cameron and I, came up with the idea for the show.
Right.
But, and then it just kind of evolved from there. Him and I broke up, because differences of opinion.
Sure.
Huh? I mean, differences of opinion or whatever the case might be. Him and I have still yet to hash this out. And then, I replaced him with you, and then
he came on last night. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. And I was going to talk to him, but he left by the time I came back from my therapy session.
He said he couldn't stay that long. So,
but regardless, then
sounded like he wanted to hash it out.
Sounded like it.
But you should contact him today. See what happens.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
But regardless, it's like all the trials and tribulations that led to this point. Some hurt more than others.
Right.
There was some other stuff that happened, personal stuff that I'm not really going to talk about. But there was a lot going on at that time.
Right.
From October of 2018 through the moment I left that first job, a lot went down.
Yeah.
And then to know that going into my new job, that old job was still going to affect me and, cause the issues that they caused, hurt even worse.
Did that job cause the initial issues with this job?
The initial issues, yeah.
Oh, I did not know that. Really?
Yep. That started the trend. That started them targeting me.
Is that what happened? That same manager from the old job?
Yeah.
Oh, how'd you find that out? When did you find that out?
Oh, it was no secret.
Oh, you knew?
Oh, they let it be known.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know y'all don't know what we're talking about.
We're speaking in code.
Yeah,
I can speak to it in code. So
Right.
I was a manager at a grocery store. I was a store director for a grocery store, and I left that store, that company, to go work for a vendor.
Mm-hmm.
When I left that store, that company to go work for the vendor,
Mm-hmm.
my previous district manager said that she did not want me in her stores selling that product. And it was just her stores. So the stores in her district were the ones I was forbidden to go in.
Mm-hmm.
However, over the course of a few months, my company kept fighting with that company, saying, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
we need to let him back in those stores. Those are his stores to, watch over. There's his stores to, because I was a district manager for this new company, and I
Right.
had 160 stores, but yet 5 of them are stores I could not go in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they kept saying, no, 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 we don't want them in these stores. Fine.
Mm-hmm.
Then eventually got to the point where I guess my new company annoyed the shit out of them so much that they said, oh, fine, we don't want him in any of our stores anymore. So I got completely kicked out of these stores for no reason. They never gave a real reason why they didn't want me in these stores.
Oh, I thought that's not the issue I thought we were talking about.
No,
Never
no, no,
mind.
no. No, so they literally said, we just don't want him in our stores.
Mm.
For no reason at all. And
Mm-hmm.
my company pressed them and said, hey, why? And they're like, well, no reason, we just don't.
We just said no. Yeah.
So my company at that time said, well, hey, since you've gotten kicked out of a store, we're going to have to let you go.
Mm.
And I'm like, wait a second. So for something I didn't even do,
Right. And a reason you don't even know.
and a reason that they didn't even know,
Yeah.
they literally didn't know.
Yeah.
And they wanted to get rid of me because of it.
That's like saying we want to fire you because we don't know.
Exactly. However, I think legal stepped in and a couple other people, HR stepped in and they were like, this is not right. So let's
Right.
just go ahead and transfer his position
Mm-hmm.
and put him in a different area to where it's not going to affect anything.
Mm-hmm.
But that pissed off my bosses because they wanted to get rid of me. Because, again, they had this policy. You get kicked out of a store, you're done.
Oh, okay.
But they tried. And
Right.
then the next thing I know, the podcast, then they're targeting me for the podcast. Then the next thing I know that they're pissed off at me because I hurt myself on their watch, even though I told them, hey, I can't be doing this because of, my neck and whatever, but whatever.
And they chose to ignore it.
They
Yeah.
chose to ignore it, and then they chose to ignore the doctor's note, and then they...
Which is all illegal, by the way.
Yeah, no. But
anyway. So now you're here.
And now I'm here. Stuck jobless and almost moneyless.
Yeah. I think COVID is part of the reason you can't get your money though, right? Because they're like backed up or something. Is that right?
As far as unemployment goes, yeah.
Yeah.
Because being that I wasn't terminated because of COVID or I was just laid off,
Mm-hmm.
it has to go before a deputy and then we have to state our case.
Mm-hmm.
And if I win, I get my unemployment. If they win, they don't have to pay the unemployment. So because of so many cases being backed up, it's just taken forever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's awful.
I'm almost positive I can win that piece of the puzzle.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that I think I can do no problem.
Yeah.
I am a master. So back in the day, and I can say this company because I have no problem with this company, or not really, but back in the day when I was a store manager for Walmart, I took pride in the fact that I always won my cases when it came down to unemployment cases. So whenever we,
What do you mean?
so, at least in Florida, I can't speak for anywhere else in the country.
Right.
Whenever somebody files for unemployment at Walmart, they automatically contest it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it always goes in front of a magistrate or something, a deputy or whatever.
Right.
And Walmart always has the terminating manager fight the case. So no lawyers, no nothing. It's just the associate and the manager and the magistrate.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to fight the case.
This sounds very fishy.
Why?
I don't know. But I mean, I know nothing about unemployment at all. It just
Okay,
sounds very,
so if you're terminated for a legitimate reason,
yeah,
something that you did, you do not qualify for unemployment.
sure.
Also, if you quit, you don't qualify for unemployment.
Right, of course.
But if it's certain circumstances out of your control or whatever the case might be, then you do qualify for unemployment, laid off, downsizing, whatever. Um, or, minor infractions that, whatever that, because I mean, the company can have stricter laws than the actual laws.
Right.
So if, as long as you're not violating, the employment law on why you got fired, you're just violating the company policy, then there's certain workarounds around it and you can still qualify for unemployment. But
But if you're like late every day to work and you eventually get fired for it, then you're not going to get unemployment.
Correct.
Right?
But they would still file for unemployment.
Right.
But
Because they got fired.
correct. But they would also hope that we didn't have the documentation necessary to prove that we fired them for the just cause.
But okay.
So that's what most of the time it was, well, you can't prove it, so I'm going to go ahead and file for unemployment.
And if you could always prove it.
I always could. But even if I couldn't prove it because, one of my managers messed up or whatever the case might be, I always managed to crack them.
It's messed up.
And anytime I got on the phone for an unemployment case, we never had to pay out. Took pride in that.
Why didn't you call them back then?
Walmart?
Yeah. I mean, if you didn't ever have an issue with them.
Let's just say I burned that bridge.
But you didn't burn the bridge here in Maryland. Like, how bad did you burn the bridge? Like, did you douse it in gas and light multiple matches, or did you just like light a match and throw it at it?
I kind of threw a match and threw it directly at my boss's face. There was no gas involved.
Does your boss still work there?
Yeah, but if they put in, not rehirable, they're not rehirable. But either way,
funny?
If I went back to work for that company, I would die.
Oh, okay. Probably. Yeah.
No.
I could see that.
Nope.
I could see people who work for Walmart kind of selling their soul a little bit just to work there.
The managers do, yeah.
Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah. And the thing about it is they take really great care of their managers. And now they're just starting to take real good care of their associates. But and they take care of them in financially. I mean, their managers make good money. I mean, even as an assistant manager, you're making at least 60 to 70 G's a year.
Yeah. I think I actually have a friend who in California works for a corporate office for them.
I mean, no. To be totally honest with you, I mean, I could never go back into retail again.
Yeah. Yeah, retail is a soul-sucking venture in general.
I mean, I did it for 11 years with Walmart, 10 years with Walmart, 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't do it again.
Yeah.
I don't think I have the mental fortitude to be able to handle that. And that's the honest to God truth.
Yeah.
It's not that I just don't want to handle it. I probably literally couldn't handle it.
Yeah. So on the looking forward, on a more positive note for the mental health hour, I would like to I just want to show you something I'm really excited about that I bought.
Okay.
Because this year has obviously been shit for many reasons. And it's almost September. And because I'm also going into hibernation mode a little bit in my brain, I'm also going into planning mode because that's what I do when I'm like mentally done with the shit that I don't want to have to do with anymore. I plan for better shit. That's just how I work. So anyway, I bought a planner for next year already that also involves a little bit of learning, because I've kind of gotten into a little bit of woo-woo stuff this year, which is actually part of my whole internal learning about myself and journey and whatnot. So I bought this journal. It's called Moonology Diary for 2021. And it's specifically like, it's a planner, right, for all of next year, but like it also involves the moon phases, and like I get to learn about the moon phases. And I don't know if this is going to help me or not, but it's cool, and I'm kind of excited for it, because even if like planning some shit by the moon phases doesn't even exist, or like it doesn't matter, or it doesn't have anything to do with anything, it's still cool to learn, because I mean, it's a real physical thing that's up in the sky. So
My psychic medium friend William Constantine, who's been joining us this entire time,
right.
he might be able to answer that question for you.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if he's still here.
Would he be able to come on and talk to us?
It's possible that I can get him to come on next week.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I could talk to him. If William, if you're still out there, we would love to have you come on this specific show next week.
Right.
That'd
be cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've had him on second podcast.
Yeah, and then we could talk about like some spiritual mental health stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and oh my God, did we have? I mean, because the thing about it is with him, he's also a life coach.
Yeah.
So, and he actually focuses more on the life coach stuff than the psychic medium stuff now. But good dude.
Oh yeah, I know. I
mean,
saw some of his stuff.
Well, the thing about it is, I mean, he's been, ever since our conversation, he's had my back.
Yeah.
He's been helping me, you know. He randomly sends me, you know, mental health words of affirmation. He constantly checks in on me. He'll show up in my streams. He's just an overall good dude, you know. And
you want to get a little bit weird for a minute?
Sure.
So I know that something exists that we can't explain, and I don't know what it is. There's a scientific part of my brain that wants to be like grounded and logical and know what it is and be able to explain it scientifically. There is. I try to be fairly logical in most things that I do, but I understand to a certain degree that there's something within us ourselves that we just can't explain. And I don't know what it is. And I think that we call it like intuition. No, I don't think I think it's probably has something to do with our brains. I do, but we tend to call it intuition, basically. Like when people say, well, what's your gut feeling? You know what I mean? There's things that we know that we don't know how we know. But when I was like 12, 13, somewhere in there, I was experiencing things like physically, that I think have something to do with that. But yeah, I would like to get his input on that as well, because that's something that I'm trying to learn more about, because intuition can also mean different things to different people for different reasons. And I'd like to learn more about that too. So I'm going to ask him about that too. If he's able to. You're muted, honey.
Oh, I will talk to him, and
cool.
He's still. I don't know if he's still here. He hasn't responded in the comments, so I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, I can talk to him and see if he wants to come on, if he's available to come on next Monday.
Cool.
But anyway, back to something else. So I've already announced it online, and I'm gonna announce it here too, because I think it's important.
Okay.
I've started a Kickstarter campaign.
Right.
For a TV show that I'm going to direct, produce. I'm going to have it as a web series the first time, then maybe try to sell it. Who knows? Or maybe I'll just continue to do it as a web series. Therefore, I do it on my own, and it's my own personal project. I don't have to worry about TV stations or other places fucking with my vision. But anyway, so the project is solely whole mental health based, and what it's going to be is I'm going to enlist 3 everyday average Joes or Janes, whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
and 3 celebrities, whether they're B list, C list, A list, whatever,
Yeah.
um, that deal with mental health issues. Now, it could
Mm-hmm.
be just a shit ton of stress,
Mm-hmm.
or it could be bipolar disorder, it could be a schizophrenia. I mean, whatever, spectrum level it is. And I want
Mm-hmm.
to try to get a variety of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to travel out there or to them and follow them around for 10 days or so
Mm-hmm.
and get a real look into their life,
Mm-hmm.
and really kind of explore not only them, but also explore the flaws in the mental health care system,
Mm-hmm.
in America. Um, and it's going to be quite the adventure if I can get it funded, because it's going to cost a lot for the traveling and the expenses that are going to be had with it. The actual production piece of it all won't be, it's not going to cost that much to do.
Mm-hmm.
I have all the production equipment now. The only thing I need is like maybe a cinematic camera, or just a good, video camera. But
Mm-hmm.
other than that, I mean, I have, Adobe Premiere and all that other stuff. It's just gonna be the traveling piece that's gonna cost the most.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you have all of your interviews lined up for next week already, or
I
this
do,
week?
I do not know. I have tonight and Thursday booked so far. I'm waiting to hear back about the rest of the week.
Okay. I have a friend that I already interviewed for The Teachable Soul. And actually, his podcast came out last week. His name is Russell Nolte. And he has built an entire career basically around or on Kickstarter. That's how he funds all of his projects. So I would like to hook you up with him, and maybe you can interview him and find out, how he best did that, because he's a writer and he writes novels, but he also writes graphic novels, and that's how he started out as a director, and did like a web series and a movie, and has done a couple things, but he funds all of his projects through Kickstarter. So I'm going to get you connected with him.
Yeah, that'd be great. Because I mean, I think this has the potential to, and it's just an extension of this show. It's an extension of Suck It Podcast.
Yeah.
Um, but I have a feeling that it's going to highlight it more than ever before.
Right.
Um, and I just, I love this show. I love Suck It Podcast, and those are what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Right.
There's no doubt in my mind that that is what I'm meant. I'm here for that reason.
Right.
The funding, on the other hand, that sucks, but whatever. But this show is a passion project that I've been thinking about for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it will only draw more attention to both shows, this show and Suck It.
Yeah.
And on top of that, draw attention to the state of affairs that we truly are in.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I think will open a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the price of tag I put on it is $75,000.
Mm-hmm.
And because, like I said, the amount of funding it's going to cost for the actual travel and expenses for the
Right.
travel, and then the advertising after the fact, once I get it all done. Because I don't want, I'm going to, spend a lot of that money on advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll also compensate the people, for allowing
Right.
them to bug their lives for 10 days or so.
Right.
But
That sounds like fun.
it could potentially be, it's going to be fun, but it's also going to be very mentally draining. Having to see, now you're muted,
Yeah.
having to see what other people go through.
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to be like taxing as far as getting this done or editing the episodes, blah blah. No,
Are you
I
gonna follow
love.
your brother?
Um, I think I'm gonna have him as a subject. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for a couple of reasons. Number one, just because it'd be fun to follow my brother around for a couple weeks.
Well, he has a very interesting story in general.
He does.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be really cool to get dive certified in the process and actually follow him in the water and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And
Yeah, that'd be cool.
that would be a really cool episode.
Yeah.
Um, and it's going to be just really interesting how I'm going to, the thought I have behind it. Um, I want to do the first season. I want to do is 12 episodes. Um, each episode will highlight two people each week.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll end up being like 2 episodes per person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, half on one side and then half on the other side. So like the first half of the season will be the first part of each episode of each person, and then the second half of the season will be the second part of each person.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first 5 days and then the second 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think it. I want to get people from all walks of life, obviously,
Right.
and I also want to get a wide array of people that struggle with different things.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be just a stay-at-home mom who has depression or bipolar disorder or whatever the case might be,
Yeah.
or whether it's a CEO of a company
Mm-hmm.
or a whatever.
Right.
And the only time we won't really be able to follow them, depending on whether or not their work will allow us in there. Um, but I have a feeling that this project, this web series, could potentially open a lot of eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can get the funding for it, this web series, which I'm calling "We're Just Like You," real stories of mental health,
Cool.
um, could be eye-opening for a lot of different people.
Right.
Um,
Really.
so I do have a Kickstarter, opened on that, and I'm gonna post it right now. Let me
Okay.
find it. Um,
I'm emailing my friend right now, asking him if he's interested.
oh, that's fine. So, like I said, it's called "We're Just Like You: The Real Story of Mental Health," um, and I'm gonna share it right now. Oh, I didn't put it everywhere. I put it in all destinations. um, like I said, this is a true passion project for me. Um, and I think could touch a lot of lives.
Right.
Um, and like I said, hopefully open some eyes to the bullshit that is um, the mental health care system here in America.
Right. That'd be cool. I think I don't know if I don't know. That would be really cool.
Yeah, um, it would be. I think it'd be
Mm-hmm.
really fun to do. Um, get to meet a lot of cool people. Um, talk to their friends, their family, the whole nine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it'd be really cool.
Yeah.
So if you want to donate to this project, click the link in the comments. If not, that's cool too. Not sure how I'm gonna do, how I'm gonna air it yet, but we'll figure it out.
Mhm.
Right now, I just need to get the funding and continue to advertise and stuff like that.
Right. Right. Right.
But I think it's a great idea. That it's a story that needs to be told.
Yep. I agree. That would be super cool.
Yeah, but this has been an interesting hour. We've talked about or hour and a half. It's been
Right.
we've talked about a lot,
Yep.
but
Love it as always.
And just to let everybody know, me and Kat have already talked about this. Even though she's taking a break from Teachable Souls, she still will be here every Monday.
Yeah, every Monday.
Her kids can fend for themselves during the hour on Mondays.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully, well, no, they can fend for themselves. They'll be all right.
Yeah. I mean, her son's.
Girliness, which she does.
I think we
She does.
started having our 18-year-old when she was 13. Even before that, babysitting her sister.
Well, yeah, but that's because they're sisters. There's a whole different dynamic when it's an older brother and his younger sister, who is 6.5 years younger than him, who came along when he was enjoying his single child life and took everything from him.
Well, I mean, same thing goes for Joey. She was 8 or 9 when Izzy was born. 8 when Izzy was born.
But again, it's different when it's a girl.
But 13-year-old boys are dickheads. I was one. Now I'm a 39-year-old. I'm a 39-year-old man who's a dickhead.
You know what makes me the saddest though is that he's actually not a dickhead. He just pretends to be a dickhead because he thinks it's like cool or some shit.
It is cool to be mean.
And he is like the sweet, yeah, totally, right?
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah, every 13-year-old thinks that, I think, at some point in time. But
yeah,
I can't wait for the day where he like realizes that he can be his caring, not affectionate. What's the word I'm looking for? Like he considers others considerate. There we go. Caring, considerate self, because he really is. He just doesn't want to act like it because, I don't know, hormones or some bullshit.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, I think
I'm sure he did, Christina. She said, Derek did it.
I made it cool.
Right.
That's funny as shit.
So. But all right.
God, I love that woman.
Oh, I know.
But I love you too.
I love you too.
All right.
Enjoy the rest of your next 3 hours. Is it 3 hours left or 2?
No, I'm done.
Oh, you said 24 though, bro.
I went 22.
But you can't lie. You only have an hour and a half left.
Nope, I'm tired.
I bet you are. Okay.
Yep. I'm gonna go upstairs and lay in my bed.
All right. Apply to Vox before you go to bed, please.
I'll look. Yeah.
Okay. Love you.
And I'll look at those other ones. But we'll see you guys back next week. Hopefully we can get William on. That'd be great. I will talk to him today or tomorrow.
Okay.
And we'll let you guys know. But either way, we'll be back next Monday, 12 p.m. East, 9 p.m. West, for another beautiful episode of the Mental Health Hour. See you guys.